right to the edge. Night after night, arguments, terrible arguments. One night, Vincent threw a drink in Gauguin's face. That ended that argument. The next night, an argument again, and Gauguin walked out into the night, leaving Vincent like a matador walking away from a wounded bull. Vincent followed him into the streets carrying a razor. Gauguin heard him coming, stopped, turned. They stared at each other in the darkness. And of course, Vincent couldn't hurt Gauguin, could he? He couldn't hurt this god that walked the earth, could he? So he went back to his own room and he hurt himself instead. Yes, I'm sure you've all heard about it by now. Cut off his own ear, or part of it. Wrapped it in a cloth, tied a ribbon around it, and carried it to the local brothel. There was a prostitute there named Rachel. She enjoyed mocking her customers like a parrot. 5 francs to cut off your ear. 5 francs to cut off your ear. Vincent handed her the package, and he said, guard this object carefully. Then he went back to his room and collapsed.
5 francs to cut off your ear. 5 francs to cut off your ear. 5.
Oh, Jesus, Vincent! Won't you ever learn? Love the poor, Vincent. Love the lost, the outcasts, the destitute, the homeless. Even love a bastard like Gauguin. But for God's sake, Vincent, won't you ever learn to love yourself? write to you in full possession of my faculties, and not as a madman, but as the brother you know. This is the truth. A certain number of people here, there were more than 80 signatures, addressed a petition to the mayor describing me as a man not fit to be at liberty, or something like that. The commissioner of police then gave the order to shut me up for the good of the community. Anyhow, here I am, shut up in a cell under lock and key and with keepers, without my guilt being proved or even open to proof. If I did not have your friendship, I should be driven to suicide. And cowardly as I am, I should commit it in the end. If the police had protected my liberty by preventing the children and even the grown-ups from crowding around my house and climbing the windows as they have done, as if I were a curious animal, I should have more easily retained my self-possession. In any event, I have done no harm to anyone. For the time being, I should prefer to remain inside, as much for my own peace of mind as for other people. My dear friend Gauguin, I take the opportunity of my first absence from the hospital to write you a few words of very deep and sincere friendship. I often thought of you in the hospital. The next 6 months were the best and the worst. Vincent's painting had come out of the darkness. His colors were seasoned, bright. His draftsman's fist was sure. He saw the wheat fields, cornfields, sunflowers, painted them with his own special vision, special beauty. He said, "I feel as if nature has spoken to me." The doctor's report was encouraging. Vincent was hopeful, but he had a relapse. I think worse than the hell, the torment of the illness, they were the good people of the town of Arles. They considered him mad, you see, some kind of freak. In fact, they would have driven him mad. They teased him, they laughed at him, they chased him through the streets. They climbed the trees outside his windows to get a better look at the creature. Throw us an ear, throw us an ear. They even threw garbage at him. When will you stop? Will it ever stop? What is it you expect? What do you want? What do you want your artists to be? Your thinkers, your visionaries, your philosophers. What? What do you expect of them? What do you want them to be? Can't you simply accept the contribution of the individual? Can't you judge him for his work? Or must he satisfy your social needs as well? I've heard you. I've heard it said among you. He was mad. He was strange. He wasn't like us. No, no. You're right, my friends. He wasn't like us. He was different. And you are blessed by that difference. That difference gave you beauty. Some of you someday, you'll learn to appreciate that beauty. And some of you will even profit by it. His work will be sold and resold and resold at higher and higher profits because Vincent was different. If your favorite poet touches you, touches your soul, gives you a spiritual connection with the rest of mankind, isn't that enough? If the artist sacrifices his comfort, his strength, his very life to bring you his special vision of beauty, to decorate your walls and your halls, must he also be dressed by your tailor? He hadn't hurt anyone but himself. Could have responded to being loved, being liked, even just being left alone. No, no. They pursued him like a hunted animal. Vincent was not mad, but he chose the relative peace of the asylum at Saint Remy. There, among the mad, he finally found some peace. When he painted in the garden, the patients would come and watch. Though here there are some patients very seriously ill, the fear and horror of madness that I used to have has lessened a great deal. Though here you continually hear terrible cries and howls like beasts in a menagerie, in spite of that, people get to know each other, and they help each other when their attacks come on. When I'm working in the garden, they all come to look, and I assure you they have the discretion and the manners to leave me alone. More than I can say for the good people of the town of All. Now everything that he was, all the beauty, the passion, the power of his love for life, for humanity, for nature, now it came together in the brilliance of his work. His talent, his draftsmanship, his control of his work was now so complete he could turn out 2 beautiful canvases in a day. He'd start painting at sunrise, paint furiously until noon, finish a canvas, eat a piece of bread, turn his easel in another direction, and start again. In the evening, he'd stumble home exhausted, with 2 magnificent canvases under his arm. And then sometimes he went out and painted at night. He put candles on his hat to throw light on his canvas. In the last 70 days, these last 70 days of his life, he turned out 100 pieces of work, 70 oils and 30 drawings. In the last year of his life, he turned out 200 pieces of work. Not the work of a madman. Sick, yes. He was very sick. Epilepsy. Yes. Epilepsy. That's what the doctors told me. I have their reports. From Dr. Ray, his physician at Arles, epileptic crisis. From Dr. Perron, chief surgeon of the asylum at Saint Remy, attack of epilepsy. Seizures. Had a number of seizures. When the attacks came, they terrified him. They'd terrify anyone. The man was drained, physically, emotionally drained. And the attacks were nightmares, voices, visions, hallucinations. When they came, he didn't know what he was doing. One time, he was found eating his own paints. Another time, he drank the kerosene from the lamps. One day, he was allowed to go into the fields alone to paint. He didn't come back. When they found him, he was clinging desperately to a tree. He screamed when they tried to tear him away. He believed that tree had captured his soul. If he left it, he was going to die. When each of these attacks was over, he lived in terror of the next one, which he knew was going to come. And still, somehow, I don't know how, in spite of all of this, when he was well enough to paint, he painted. Through the iron-barred window of my room, I see a square field of wheat in an enclosure, a perspective above which I see the morning sun rising in all its glory. And then, at last, one day, one joyous, miraculous, incredible day, just 4.5 months ago, we sold one of his paintings. It was The Red Vines. It sold in Brussels for 400 francs. His first sale. Now, I'd like to address myself to Monsieur Ernest Clausson, critic, author of the following. In The Red Vines by Vincent Van Gogh, if one assumes an ordinary point of view in judging this painting, what does one say of the irradiating light, the diffusion of flaming rays, the vineyard in blood-drenched colors, the orgy of warm and intense tonalities in which blood and fire appear to have usurped the place of color? One will say, and not without reason, it is madness. How dare you? How dare you, sir? Is this your contribution to the world of art? Are you a physician? I don't think so. I humbly suggest you not diagnose my brother's health. You study his work. Why? I can't understand why it's so necessary for so many of you to assume that my brother was mad. Why? Why? Why does it seem so comforting to you to believe that? Well, it should have been a beginning. His first sale should have been a beginning. He was living at Auvers. He had a room over the Café Ravoux. He was under the care of Dr. Gachet, a good, kind man with an interest in art. He had a beautiful place to work. He had his wheat fields, cornfields, sunflowers. He had someone to care for him. He was getting recognition, and he had sold. It should have been a beginning.
My dear mother and sister, I am feeling much calmer, and the restlessness in my head has greatly quieted down. I often think of you both, and should very much like to see you once again. I'm quite absorbed in the immense plain with wheat fields against the hills, boundless as a sea, delicate yellow, delicate soft green, the delicate violet of a dug-up and weeded piece of soil, everything under a sky of delicate blue, white, pink, and violet tones. I'm in a mood of almost too much calmness to paint this.
I wrote to him and I said, Vincent, we're almost at the top of the hill. You and I are like a pair of horses in harness. And we're almost at the top of the hill. It's time to celebrate. My dear brother, there are many things I should like to write you about, but I feel it's useless. There's this that I've always told you. I shall always consider that you are something other than a simple dealer in art. You have your part in the actual production of canvases, which even in the cataclysm retain their peace. Now, this is where we are. This is what we've got to. Things are very strained between dealers in pictures by dead artists and living artists. My own work, I'm risking my life for it. And my reason has half foundered owing to it. That's all right. But you can choose your side, I think, acting with true humanity. But what's the use? What's the use? That is the last letter he ever wrote. I found it in his pocket. Last week, I received a telegram from Dr. Gachet telling me that Vincent had injured himself seriously. I should come. Dr. Gachet was with him when I arrived. Vincent was sitting up in his bed. He was calmly smoking his pipe. His face was pale, but peaceful. On Sunday morning, as usual, just before noon,